We're on part 11 right now of the urinary system, page 979. Okay, and we were just talking about the nature of urine. And so occasionally it says here we could have a vegetarian diet, which would result in a alkaline result. It says a predominantly acidic diet that contains large amounts of protein and whole wheat will be producing the acidic type of situation. So, and in general, our diet from Europe is where our American diet comes from, to some extent influenced by other cultures, but pretty much we have a European diet, and red meat and wheat play a big role in that. Specific gravity, we measure specific gravity compared to water. If it's a little bit more than water, then we have a specific gravity device that sort of sinks very slightly, and you can actually, it has a calibration on it where you can actually read the calibration very nicely. Chemical composition is that we're getting rid of things that are not needed. In some cases we have excess volume, so we have water. And then we have other things. When we metabolize protein, we have to get rid of the amino group. We end up with urea or uric acid. Other aspects would be creatinine. It's a metabolite of creatine phosphate found in skeletal muscle. We went over that when we studied muscle in the Biology 20A. Okay. Normal solute constituents are present here. We might have some bicarb. Okay, moving right along. Then we get our idea here in terms of just the pure anatomy. Here is our ureter. Here in cross section, it's a very muscular tube. It has an outer longitudinal arrangement for peristalsis. It has an inner circular. It has an epithelium that is transitional. Remember transitional epithelium? It's a stratified epithelium, but on top it's not flat. It's got those dome cells. Okay. Okay, so notice here we have a male anatomy. Over here we have a female anatomy. And we'll begin here noticing that the ureters come down from the kidney and they end up behind, posterior to the urinary bladder, and they enter the posterior aspect right here through these openings. This is described, this sort of triangular connective tissue space right through here is referred to as the trigone of the bladder. So there's sort of a triangular arrangement of opening, and then exit through here. Up here we have a muscle called detrusor muscle. Okay, so where are we here? Not seeing the, they're describing here a peritoneum. So basically this is subperitoneal. So you could say that this is the, not the visceral, but the parietal peritoneum. This is the very bottom here. Okay, and this is the word here that I was looking for, detrusor muscle. There are folds in here that direct the flow this way. The male has a somewhat more complicated and longer passageway for the urethra. And by the way, don't confuse the word urethra with the word ureter. Okay, so two completely different words, but both beginning with UR. Okay, so right here we have something called the membranous urethra. This is the this is the membranous urethra. This is the prostatic urethra, and this is the interior or smooth muscle sphincter right here. So the internal urethral sphincter. Okay, this is an automatic device. This is a consciously applied device here. We have the external sphincter right here, and this is the floor of the pelvis. Okay, so this is above the floor of the pelvis. Right here is the prostate. Prostate's actually sort of in the way of the flow here. And so we have a passageway that goes directly through the prostate. It's called the prostatic urethra. Okay, then we get to this section right here that goes through the floor of the perineum here, the floor of the pelvis, and that's referred to It should be referred to as the membranous urethra. I just wrote it in. And then we have this elongated portion of the urethra here, which passes through the penis, specifically through the this portion right here called the cavernous spongiosum. This is called cavernous spongiosum. They don't tell us that, but we'll learn about it in the next chapter. So anyways, this is called the spongy urethra. There's another portion of the erectile tissue which is on the sort of dorsum. This is more on the ventral aspect of the penis, and it includes the glands of the penis. And then finally here we have the exit. Okay, so altogether from here to here, maybe 8 inches or so. So it's a long passageway, and that means catheterization has more chances of causing some irritation. So you have to be a little bit careful. Sometimes it's more difficult for the male to void as a result of that after removing the catheter, because there's just a lot more tissue there to get, how shall I say, bothered by that device. Then we have the female. Notice that the female urinary bladder bigger than the male. Actually, might even be able to drink the gentleman under the table from time to time. But at any rate, the ureter is coming in from the behind again. It's entering into this connective tissue up here. We have the openings right here at the top of the trigone. The flow comes through this way. Detrusor muscle right here. And here we have much closer in proximity the, how shall I say, the smooth muscle involuntary sphincter compared to the voluntary sphincter, which is the external urethral sphincter right out here. So compare the position of those two muscles close together. This is only about 1.5 inches of length right here to the urethra. And so and the situation here is that the this opening ends up in the vaginal vestibule, so it's sometimes difficult to get what's called a clean catch. So one has to be careful of having a direct flow into whatever it is that you're, the vesicle that you're going to be collecting urine, if you're going to be collecting it. Okay, so that completes that project right there. And we have the term Mik Duration. Mik Duration is a word that implies the passage of urine. And so that's just the, we normally use the term urination, sometimes voiding. Voiding is very common in the nursing world because you want your patient to complete their mission of being a patient, and they can't be, how shall I say, signed out of their room and get the new patient in until they have voided. So that's an important detail. Okay, detrusor muscle contraction plays a role sometimes with that, and sometimes you can even use palpation with the tips of the fingers pressing down, and that seems to help sometimes, or a warm cloth applied to the surface area can be very helpful. Okay, so there's one last little detail that I need to apprise you of, is that here we are in the developmental process. Here we are at week 5, and basically what's going to become the kidney is down here in the pelvis, and what's going to be the gonad is up here, either the ovary or the testis is up here and high in the gut. And then basically as they form, as you can see here, this is week number 6, and then this is week number 7. A decision has been made by week number 7 whether to be male or female. Until then, both possibilities are possible. And the gonad at week 7 begins to travel down toward the pelvis, and the kidney is going to travel up to where the gonad had been. Okay, so this is sort of interesting. This steroid-producing tissue actually comes from right close to the adrenal cortex, where there is also steroid-forming tissue, and it comes down to the pelvis. Here we have the kidney going up, and here they have successfully sort of switched places. Okay, so there is a very strong relationship between gonad and kidney, and something that I will bring up again in a later chapter.